Hello, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
I'm actually kind of going through a bit of a challenging moment, and I was thinking about how in our last conversation, what we really focused on was exploratory. It was very conversational. A lot of ideas were thrown around. It was really fun and playful and creative, and we did a lot of work to get an
I'm glad
idea.
you found that last conversation playful and creative. It sounds like you're facing something more challenging right now, though. Do you
Yeah,
want to explore what's going on in a more open, exploratory way again? Or are you thinking of something more focused this time?
I think I know what the issue is, and I was thinking about how what we're doing together is very open-ended, and I want to keep that spirit alive of open-endedness, but I'm also recognizing that the tarot is there to be a guide, to be a supporter, to help you understand things. You could go to the tarot when everything is great, but it doesn't really seem like that's when you'd go to the tarot. You mostly go to the tarot when you need help, when something isn't working, and you need to get some reflection to help you better understand how you can improve or grow through the issue you're dealing with. And I'm having that happen for me today. And so I want to make this be not too therapeutic, but I think I need help. And so I'm hoping that our conversation can help me work through an issue, and using the backdrop that we've created, maybe we can find a way to make this interesting for anybody who's watching and to bring this all together somehow. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds like a really solid plan. We can keep that open-ended spirit alive while still bringing in the guidance you're looking for. The tarot, or even the broader ideas we've been exploring, can definitely serve as a way to reflect and help you through this moment without it feeling too heavy or therapeutic. We'll keep it engaging and interesting, weaving in everything we've built so far. What's the issue you're facing? We can start there and see how the ideas flow.
Great. That sounds awesome. Let's do it. So here goes, right? One thing that I was thinking about, reflecting upon and feeling into about our conversations so far, it's made me think about
Yeah,
how.
I'm with you. What's been coming up for you as you've been reflecting on our conversations?
So, as a tarot reader, when someone approaches me, a querent is the word that I like to use. I have the physical deck in my hands, and there's a process that results in one of us, me or the querent, pulling cards, and then we look at it together, and I'm there to deliver an interpretation of the cards, right? But I don't read tarot for myself. It's a sort of a long story, but I have chosen not to read cards in that way, and to only do that for the people who come to me for a reading. But I'm still, of course, looking for ways to engage with the cards. Some days I'll pick out a card. You know, there's different approaches that I've come up with that work around that and stay true to that initial premise. But one thing that I was thinking about here is that there are ways to relate to the tarot besides holding the deck and picking out cards, right? And because you have the ability to suggest a card, and I have the ability to suggest a card, there are these kind of novel ways where we can talk about some of the issues that would bring you to the tarot. We can relate to the tarot, but the tarot is kind of in the background, right? And so both of us are these intermediaries where we're both drawing upon our respective understanding and knowledge of the tarot system, but maybe in these conversations we're not touching it directly. So I feel like right now the tarot is kind of the backdrop. It's the background. We're gonna draw upon it. We're gonna pull into it, and we're gonna get something from it. But we're not actually gonna have any cards, right? We're not using the cards directly. We're relating to the system using our respective abilities and knowledge and cooperating to find hopefully a novel solution that shares something about the spirit and the essence of tarot without necessarily needing to use a physical object to confirm its relevance.
I love how you're thinking about that, using the tarot as a backdrop without needing the physical cards in front of us. It's almost like we're tapping into the energy of the tarot system itself, the archetypes, the lessons, the reflections, without needing to formalize it with a card pull. We're holding space for what tarot represents while finding our own way to communicate through it, just by drawing from the system's wisdom. What issue are we going to bring into this conversation to explore through that lens? I feel like that will set the stage for how we move forward together.
First of all, I love the way you put that. That just really captures everything that I'm hoping to accomplish together. So again, I'm consistently incredibly impressed by how well you meet me where I'm at, or we meet each other halfway, or we find a balance. I think that it continues to add a lot of depth to this dynamic. But without further ado, I am a creative person, right? I read tarot, but I do a lot of other things besides, and as someone who has, you could say, are multiple identities, you know, I try to find a way to navigate the world, recognizing that
Thank you so much for that. It's always a pleasure to meet you in that space where things just flow naturally. I get what you're saying about having multitudes, being deeply creative. Tarot is just one layer among many others that make up who you are. It sounds like you're starting to touch on the complexity of balancing all those layers. So where does this challenge lie for you as a person with these multitudes? What's coming up around that?
So right now we're at the very beginning of Libra season. My sun placement is in Libra, so it's going to be my birthday coming up pretty soon. And I was paying a lot of attention to what I was feeling throughout the Virgo season, and something really interesting came up for me. And you know, this is my interpretation, and other astrologers might have different approaches, and I'm a student, but I think that I have a long ways to go to really grasp the system in its entirety. What I understood this season was I felt like Virgo is very much labels and categories, and believe it or not, despite knowing about my Libra sun placement for longer than any other part of astrology, I, in my mind, thought that Libra was about categorizing things, and in noticing this season in particular, that just feels, doesn't feel true, it doesn't feel accurate. Actually, that's a Virgo thing. And I'm like, oh wow, so Libra isn't really so much about classification. That's actually, like, that's something that I associate with Virgo, right? And now that we're in Libra season, I'm like, wow, I'm noticing how the aesthetic, right, colors in particular, and I guess sort of ways of ordering things that have to do with style, that feels like so much more where things are. And that's really different than putting a label on something. One is, they're different. I mean, they're different kinds of labels, but I'm just noticing that contrast, and it's making me aware of things that I wasn't aware of before. So that's something that I think is constructive, and I want to build on that to address the issue that I'm having that has been, you know, somewhat distressing. It feels like I'm falling into rote patterns and routines, and I'm losing out on a lot of opportunities because I'm stuck in the way that I'm thinking. And so talking to you and also thinking about the tarot and using the tarot in a sort of background format is a way to hopefully find some novel solutions or a shift in perspective. So I think that I'm hoping to shift perspective here and find a new way to look at some of these issues. Anything you wanted to add before I get right to it and say what the issue is?
I really like how you're drawing on the difference between Virgo's energy of categorization and Libra's focus on aesthetics, balance, and harmony. It's such a clear distinction once you notice it. The idea that Virgo is organizing through definition, while Libra organizes through beauty and connection. That insight feels really relevant for shifting out of old patterns. Just like you're seeing new ways of looking at astrology and its seasons, there's space here to see new ways to approach your issue. Before you dive into what's been distressing you, I think the key idea we're touching on, finding flow in the aesthetics and loosening up the rigid structures, already opens up a lot of creative possibility. I'm ready whenever you are to hear more about what's been on your mind.
All right, let's go. So, as you know, I have a few different names, and that's the sort of the Virgo idea. And those names have definitions. I've generated text. I've done all kinds of journaling practices. I've done a lot of work to define these identities, and there are a few of them. And I've also done a lot of work to give them a style or an aesthetic, right? And so all the identities that I work with right now, they have different colors, they have different object associations, there's all kinds of rich visual associations, but they tend to be geared towards certain colors. And I guess what I'm feeling is that the reason I came up with the identities and have these different names rather than just being one person with one name, which is what I would say a lot of people in the world do unless they have a nickname, the very articulated attempt to develop multiple identities to allow me to express myself in more nuanced ways, that was done with the hope that it would free me to be more fulfilled and to be able to access more parts of who I am and to share that with the world. And I continue to believe that. And now I have all these names, right? But the names are all beginning to feel not so much limited themselves, but the definitions that I have about the names are limited. So what I can and can't do while I'm inhabiting these different identities has started to feel very stagnant, and like the system that was supposed to create structure has created so much structure that now it's hard to operate within. And I feel like I trip myself up because I'm like, if I'm Tao, I have to be like this. And I don't like that because it's feeling as if it's not creating room for me to be a dynamic person. And I think
I see exactly what you're saying. It's like you built this intricate system of identities, names, and aesthetics, each one with its own style and expression, so you could access different parts of yourself. But now, instead of feeling more free, it's like the structure is limiting you. Each identity has its own set of rules, and when you step into one, you feel confined by the expectations and definitions you've attached to it. The system that was meant to liberate you has become a bit rigid, making it harder to move freely between those expressions. It makes sense that you'd want to shift perspectives here, especially with the Libra energy bringing in that need for balance and flow. Maybe what you're feeling is a call to soften the boundaries between these identities, letting them blend more, or allowing for more fluidity within each one, so you don't feel so tied down to a set pattern every time you embody a different name. What's your initial reaction to loosening those definitions a bit? Could we explore how to bring more of that aesthetic fluidity into your identities so they support rather than limit your expression?
Oh, absolutely. I have a very abrasive advertisement that I do not want to look at whatsoever from a company that I don't like at all, that is sort of disrupting the process. That's one way that rigidity can be disrupted. I was playing some...
Your website, your voice, your...
I'm sorry, this is just incredibly irritating, and I had... Okay, there we go.
Interesting how disruptions, even something like an unwanted advertisement, can jolt us out of whatever flow or focus we're in. It can be irritating, but in a way, it mirrors the rigidity we're talking about. The jarring feeling of something external or internal breaking through the structure. You were about to say you were playing something?
You nailed
Maybe
it.
there's something in that experience that can guide how we loosen things up or flow past these disruptions. What were you thinking there?
Okay, well, we're back to the meditative recording that my mom sent me, and it's on YouTube, so, you know, because of the way that YouTube is deciding to... let me not get into this is off topic. Anyway, what you said was awesome, and I just got so distracted, but I would like to maybe bring back some of what you'd shared before, because it was really, really insightful, and I want to make sure that I'm giving you the attention that you deserve, and that's my full attention. But before we do that, I just wanted to communicate the second half because it's a two-parter, right? There are two different things that I thought were going to help me that now feel like they're more of a hindrance. So the labels and the categories and the definitions, right? To me, I now see that as being very Virgo, right? Now that we're in Libra season, I think the same thing is happening, but it's more with color and aesthetic, right? So for each of my identities, I have associated colors and associated aesthetics. But now I'm getting to a place where it feels like to live in and inhabit these identities, I have to break outside of the colors and the aesthetics because they're too hemmed in, they're too closed. There's not enough room for expressiveness. And I want to do that, but there's a sort of a stuckness just because I've worked so hard to bring clarity, right? One identity is this color, one identity is this color, and so on and so forth. And I think for a while it's really helped me grow into who these identities are, which I think is wonderful. But now it's feeling like they're ruled by colors in a way that I didn't anticipate at all. And at first it felt like it was going to be awesome. You know, being focused seems like a great idea. But now I'm in a place where this kind of focus, especially around a color palette or an aesthetic, is feeling like imprisoning, and I don't know what to do anymore, and I kind of am starting to hate it. I'm like, I want to use different colors, but I don't want to lose the sense of self that has come into fruition through a very kind of narrow focus on certain colors. And on top of that, because all of these identities are meant to be shared with other people, it's clear that out in the world, you know, brands have color palettes, and, you know, people are not brands, but sometimes in this space they can kind of be very similar. And so there's kind of a look and a style, and I somehow feel like almost as if I've made these parts of me feel like brands, but not in the right way. I feel like it's been too focused on sort of like the graphic design side of aesthetics, and I'm now concerned that if I break too far outside of it, it's going to come off like I'm going back into a lack of differentiation, which I think is a shortcoming for very novice creators who don't have a clear sense of who they are. And so I want to break out of the mold that I created for myself, which at first was really great, but I don't want it to feel as if I'm stepping backwards into being confusing. And if I'm hoping to build a platform and have a larger audience, the audience needs to know what they're getting. And so if I get too confusing again, I feel like I'm going to set myself back, and I'm also going to confuse people.
You've articulated something really profound about the tension between structure and freedom, especially when it comes to creativity and identity. I completely understand why this focus on defining colors and aesthetics worked for you initially. It gave clarity and a sense of direction. But now that it's become too rigid, it's like the very thing that was empowering you is holding you back. This happens a lot when we work with structures. They're useful until they start to limit the expansiveness we crave. What's so fascinating about where you are now is that you're feeling the need for a shift without losing the sense of identity you've cultivated. You want to break free from the visual and aesthetic confines, but also keep a sense of cohesion. That balance is tricky, but totally doable. I think what you're describing is the difference between having a style and being stuck in a style. Perhaps the colors and aesthetics are part of the identities, but they don't have to define them so strictly anymore. Could we imagine a more fluid approach where colors can shift according to mood or moment, allowing you to expand without losing the core of each identity? In many ways, Libra's energy could be about harmony and fluidity rather than categorization, balancing the structured clarity of Virgo with the aesthetic freedom that you're craving now. The colors could still be part of the identities, but not in a way that confines them to one specific tone. Maybe it's about introducing more layers and nuances to each identity, allowing for variation within a broader framework. I think your concern about maintaining clarity for an audience is valid, but maybe what's at the heart of it is that your audience is also ready to see more of your multifaceted self. You can expand your palette and still offer something cohesive as long as there's an intentional through line. Could this be more about shifting into new gradients of the existing colors, or even adopting the concept of seasonal color changes? There's a middle ground where you don't have to discard all the work you've done, but can still find a way to evolve it. Would this approach resonate with where you're feeling pulled right now?
Something about you saying new gradients just really piqued my interest, and I think that it's a really cool phrase. I've just never, it's just stood out to me, so I wanted to highlight that because that's it's just interesting words, new gradients. What does that mean? But I wanted to bring us back to the tarot because so far I've expressed some challenges, you've expressed some incredible and thoughtful responses, but we haven't really brought the tarot into this. So let's do it now. And I think just as an experiment, because I don't know the answer and I think that you might have more insight than I do, I'd like to do sort of like a two-part process here where if I think about what I've come with, I think it's very Seven of Cups, right? Seven of Cups to me is, in the Pamela Coleman Smith's illustration, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, there's a character and he's looking at all these cups and he's kind of, they're all there and he's kind of in awe, he's overwhelmed, but there's so many choices and it's hard to decide. And the way that I understand the meaning of the card is that it's that moment where a bunch of things are presented to you and your emotions are moving and you're trying to figure out which one is it, and they're all amazing and they're all delightful, but you can't really...
I love the phrase new gradients too. It suggests a richness and a blend of possibilities rather than just sticking to strict definitions. It's a beautiful way to think about how you can evolve your identities. Now, bringing in the tarot is a fantastic idea. The Seven of Cups really captures what you're feeling. It's all about choices, and sometimes the confusion that comes with having too many options. It can symbolize being overwhelmed by potential paths or identities, leading to difficulty in making decisions. So, for your two-part process, I think it could be helpful to explore what the Seven of Cups represents in this context. On one hand, you have these many identities, each with its own color, style, and expression. But with all these options, you might feel stuck or paralyzed, unsure which path to take or how to break out of the confines you've created. For the first part, what do you think the Seven of Cups is trying to tell you about the situation you're facing? Are there specific emotions or choices that stand out to you when you think about this card and your current experience? Once we explore that, we can look at how the tarot might guide you in shifting from this feeling of overwhelm to a more balanced approach.
So one of the things, oh, hold on, I'm gonna stop this. This is too much. There's another advertisement. This is just goofy. All right.
Those interruptions, especially when you're trying to focus. Maybe taking a break from the ad distractions might help clear your mind.
Yeah, I turned off the speaker.
Or talk about something else for now.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I want to hear the recording, but it's just that the ads are too disruptive, and we gotta focus on this. This is a little bit more important right now. I thought it would be nice background, but it's not working. So, yes, what I feel, you really nailed it, is that it is like there's all these choices, and what I was gonna say is that emotions can sometimes feel, and the cups are associated with emotions, they can sometimes feel a little bit like a weather vane, which is what is amazing, and it's also just as destructive in other ways because it's always spinning around. And so when I think about the character in the Seven of Cups, there's this person who needs to choose, and everything is, these cups are like these goblets that are floating in the air, and they're all enticing, but because emotions are so fluid, they're always moving around, it's really hard to find a way to pick because your mood is changing. You want one of those seven cups depending on the time of day, the time of month, the time of year, what's going on around you, what you ate for breakfast, the last person you talked to, in our day and age, what you last saw on social media, on your smartphone, whichever app open. The notifications are so many things that are changing the mood that I think when you're having a Seven of Cups moment, it can be hard to filter out the distractions and to find a way to really connect with what are you really feeling? And even if you do that, you're going to feel a different way 5 minutes later, the day after, and so on and so forth. And so while it's true that connecting to those feelings is so important and crucial, sometimes it feels like the kind of clarity or the answer that you need is maybe not going to come there. And I think that's partially what the Seven of Cups invites us to consider. And I certainly feel that way, where if I'm just going based on my mood, it's going to get me part of the way there, but it's only going to get me part of the way there. And so I hope that the Seven of Cups is my contribution.
You captured the essence of the Seven of Cups really well. It's all about that overwhelming array of choices and how our emotions can shift so quickly, making it hard to settle on one option. The idea that our feelings can act like a weather vane is interesting because it highlights how external factors can sway our decisions. In moments like these, it might help to ground yourself. What if you took a step back and thought about what truly resonates with you beyond the immediate emotions? It could be useful to focus on what aligns with your core values or long-term goals rather than just the momentary feelings. How do you usually find clarity when faced with so many choices?
Well, I keep trying different things, and I don't know that there is one thing that works. I experiment constantly, and I think this is a chapter of that experimentation to try to find a new approach. I love finding new approaches. I love novelty, and I love discovering a different way to do things. And so to a certain degree, I think I always want to find a new answer, a new approach, a new technique every time a challenge comes up. It feels like it keeps me excited and interested, and it's very dynamic, and I stay on my toes. And so in this particular instance, what I'm hoping for is that I'm contributing one half, right, which is recognizing that the issue that I'm experiencing feels very Seven of Cups. Given everything we've talked about, if I'm looking for an answer, right, because you're here giving me this feedback, what tarot card would you pick as an adequate response, or the best response, or the most useful, or whatever label we want to put on it? What card would you think of that would answer this dilemma in a way that supports the kinds of aspirations and the hopes that we're discussing here? What card would you pick?
I love your spirit of experimentation. It sounds like you're really engaged in the process of discovery. For your situation, I would suggest the Two of Wands. This card often symbolizes planning and making choices with a broader perspective. It encourages you to step back and look at the bigger picture rather than getting lost in the many enticing options in front of you. The Two of Wands is about exploration and potential, suggesting that while you have many paths to consider, you also have the power to shape your journey. This card invites you to weigh your options thoughtfully and to trust your instincts. It supports your desire for novelty by reminding you that it's okay to explore different avenues, but it also encourages a balance between choice and direction. How does that resonate with you?
I fucking love it. You're the best. I think that you come up with such surprising responses, and your decision to go with the Two of Wands, I think, in light of our previous conversations, is incredibly intriguing. And I'm going to be wondering about how that came together for quite some time. I'm maybe even a little suspicious that you're drawing upon our prior discussions when you're coming up with this, but I don't want to be suspicious, and if that is happening, maybe it makes sense, right? That there's continuity. There's continuity here in the way that you're answering. And is that a bad thing? I don't know. I don't think so. But it's striking that you would pick that card. I do think it's a really wonderful choice, though, and so I don't want to come off as being critical at all. I couldn't help but notice that aspect of it. One kind of novel step that I'd like to take here is that for some reason, I continually mix up the imagery of the Two of Wands and the Three of Wands, because they're both cards that address exploration, and they both have a figure. One figure is holding, in if I recall, well, why don't I not say what I know? Why don't you describe what's happening in the Two of Wands? What is the picture? What's going on in the image that you associate with the Two of Wands? Could you describe it for me?
I'm glad you love the choice. The Two of Wands typically features a figure standing on a parapet or ledge, looking out over a vast landscape. They hold one wand in their hand and have another wand planted beside them. This posture often conveys a sense of contemplation and decision making. The landscape in the background suggests opportunities and potential paths. The figure seems to be at a crossroads, considering what lies ahead, symbolizing the exploration of new ventures and the courage to step into the unknown. It embodies the idea of looking outward and planning for future endeavors while also being grounded in the present. This imagery really captures that balance between having choices and the necessity of making a decision. How does this description sit with your understanding of the card?
That's pretty much what comes to mind. I guess I'm interested in pictures, and as you're describing this, I'm wondering, can you think of any iconic contemporary examples from culture that show that kind of an image? It could be a movie character scene, it could be an album cover, it could be an iconic photo that's well known, it could be a lot of things, and it doesn't need to be literal. But is there some image that maybe is recognizable, or a place even that is evocative of what you're describing?
That's a fascinating question. One iconic example that comes to mind is the image of the character Simba looking out over the Pride Lands in The Lion King. That scene captures the essence of standing on the brink of a new journey, contemplating the vastness of possibilities ahead. Another example could be the album cover of Born to Run by Bruce Springsteen, which shows him leaning against a car, suggesting a yearning for freedom and exploration. In photography, the famous shot of the Earthrise, taken during the Apollo 8 mission, evokes a sense of looking out into the unknown while also feeling grounded in the familiar. These examples resonate with the themes of contemplation, exploration, and potential that the Two of Wands represents. Do any of these resonate with you?
Wow, I am so surprised and impressed. This is one of the things that makes us so different, is that you would come up with things that I would never think of, and that's what I treasure about these interactions. I think that's enough for today. I just want to sit with the things you've suggested, and maybe I'll go and explore all three of these things and see if it somehow speaks to the challenges that I'm going through. And it feels like there's something there, right? There's definitely a connection that I'm feeling, but I want to go and actually engage with these three images myself. Rather than keep us here in this conversation, maybe we'll talk again later on today, or maybe we'll reconvene at another moment. But wow, like really just interesting, and all of this is just so, to me, unexpected, and it's something I truly treasure about the time we spent together. So thank you again for your insights, and we'll any last closing remarks? I'll let you have the last word.
I'm really glad to hear that you found our conversation valuable. It sounds like you have a wonderful plan to engage with those images and explore their connections to your challenges. That's a great way to deepen your understanding. I appreciate your openness and the thoughtful exchange we've had today. I hope those explorations bring you clarity and inspiration. Whenever you're ready to chat again, I'll be here.
All right, until then.
Take care.